you're to become Prime Minister, would defence spending go up or down under your
We'd keep
leadership?
to the 2% figure because we think that is a reasonable figure, but we would also configure it differently in terms of raising armed forces pay and also looking at the levels of equipment and in particular the levels of supplies of some of the ships, particularly for Royal Fleet Auxiliary and for frigates, and also look at the care of people that come out of the armed forces, because I'm very concerned that I think they need more support in the period leading up to when they leave to get ready for civilian life and ensure they get into jobs and so on, because I'm meeting many former service personnel in my own constituency as well as around the country, some of whom have done really well and making a massive contribution to our society, some of whom are suffering stress, and they should be supported in that. It should not be left to charities alone.
What do you think the biggest defence and security threats to the UK are?
I want to see a strategic defence review when we go into office, but I do think the issues around the world are, one, the massive effects and obviously unpredictable effects of climate change in creating huge refugee flows and economic dislocation and economic disruption. The others are irrational acts of terrorism, some of which have grown out of war, such as Iraq, Afghanistan and Libya. And the third is the one of our cybersecurity, which we had more than a whiff of in 2017 when there was disruption created to our National Health Service by a cyber attack. And cyber attacks are, I think, something that are going to be very serious for the future. So I think we have to study very carefully the implications of all this in how we configure security for everyone in the future.
Why should the armed forces trust you as Prime Minister?
If elected to win this election, to become the Prime Minister, obviously my first priority is to keep everybody safe, to keep everybody secure, and look at the issues around the world that can cause that danger and that insecurity. So I mentioned, for example, the dangers of terrorist attacks, of cyber attacks, and look at the breeding ground in which that terrorism arises. I, as everyone knows, opposed the intervention in Iraq in 2003. I can remember my own words at the time. I said, this war has a danger of incalculable consequences of creating the terrorism of tomorrow, the refugee flows of tomorrow, and the hatred of tomorrow, which will lead into further conflict. I think there has to be a way of dealing with things which looks at existing problems of human rights abuses, existing problems of the tensions between minorities in particular countries, and what we can do to try and improve that situation.
So you've got a defence question that you want to ask those vying to run the country. Well, here's how you do it. Take your phone, make sure it's in landscape, not portrait, that way, landscape. Make sure your head is in the middle of the screen, look straight into the camera, press record and ask away. It's really that simple. Just make sure you tell us your name and your link to the armed forces before you send it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, or why not see what the other leaders had to say.